The autumn rain drummed against the windows of the small house at the edge of town, a steady rhythm that had become the soundtrack to Elena's existence. She sat in her room, a book open in her lap, though her eyes had long since stopped following the words on the page. From downstairs, she could hear her brother Marcus's voice, loud and careless as always, speaking to someone she couldn't quite make out. Elena was 6 years old, though she often felt much older. The weight she carried wasn't just physical, though her body had grown substantial over the years of stress and sadness. It was the weight of being invisible, of being the subject of whispers and sideways glances, of being her brother's burden since their parents had passed away 3 years ago in a car accident that had shattered what remained of their small family. Marcus had never been kind, but grief had hardened him further. He saw Elena as an obligation, a responsibility he resented with every fiber of his being, and he never let her forget it. "She's upstairs." Marcus's voice carried clearly now, followed by a cruel laugh. "I'm telling you, brother, no man would want her. Look, I'll be honest with you. I need her gone. I can't keep supporting her, and she certainly can't support herself. You're new in town. You need a wife to help with that farm of yours. What do you say? Take her off my hands, and I'll throw in whatever money I can spare to help you get started." Elena's hands trembled, causing the book to slide from her lap to the floor with a soft thud. Her heart hammered in her chest as shame flooded through her, hot and suffocating. She knew Marcus was cruel, but this was beyond anything she'd imagined. He was trying to give her away like an unwanted piece of furniture. The other man's voice was quieter, harder to hear. She caught only fragments, "not right," and "a person, not property." But then Marcus's voice again, louder, more insistent, painting a picture of desperation and burden that made Elena want to disappear into the walls themselves. The conversation ended, and she heard footsteps on the stairs. She couldn't move, as Marcus opened her door without knocking, as he always did. "Pack your things," he said flatly. "You're getting married tomorrow." Elena stared at him, her voice catching in her throat. "What? You heard me. His name is Daniel. He's got a farm about 10 miles out. He needs help, and God knows I need you gone. It's done. Marcus, you can't just—" "I can, and I have. Be grateful anyone would take you." He turned to leave, then paused, and Elena, "Try not to embarrass me tomorrow." The door closed, and Elena sat in the silence that followed, her whole body shaking. Tears came then, hot and bitter, streaming down her face as the full horror of her situation settled over her. She was being given away to a stranger, traded like livestock, because her own brother couldn't stand the sight of her. That night Elena barely slept. She lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, wondering about the man named Daniel. Was he cruel like Marcus? Did he see her as nothing more than free labor? Would this new prison be worse than the one she already knew? The morning came gray and cold. Marcus had arranged for a simple civil ceremony at the courthouse, with 2 strangers pulled in as witnesses. Elena wore the only dress that still fit her properly, a simple blue cotton that had seen better days. She felt numb as she moved through the motions, signing papers she barely read, repeating words that meant nothing to her. Daniel stood beside her, tall and quiet. She barely looked at him, couldn't bear to see whatever disgust or resignation might be in his eyes. His hand was warm when he took hers to slip on the simple gold band, and she noticed his fingers were calloused from hard work. Marcus left immediately after the ceremony, barely concealing his relief. "She's your problem now," he said to Daniel, shaking his hand with false heartiness. "Good luck." Elena stood on the courthouse steps with her single suitcase, watching her brother drive away without a backward glance. The man beside her, her husband, she realized with a start, cleared his throat gently. "My truck is just over here," Daniel said. His voice was deep but soft, nothing like Marcus's harsh tones. "It's about a half-hour drive to the farm." She nodded, not trusting herself to speak, and followed him to a well-used pickup truck. He took her suitcase and placed it carefully in the bed of the truck, then opened the passenger door for her. The courtesy surprised her so much that she looked at him fully for the first time. Daniel was perhaps in his early 30s, with dark hair and darker eyes that held something she couldn't quite identify. Not disgust, not resignation, something gentler. He met her gaze steadily, then nodded toward the open truck door. The drive was silent, except for the rumble of the engine and the occasional crackle of the radio. Elena watched the town fall away, replaced by rolling fields and forests still clinging to their autumn colors. The farm, when they arrived, was modest but well kept. A two-story farmhouse painted white, a large red barn, several outbuildings, and fields stretching into the distance. Daniel parked near the house and came around to open her door again. He retrieved her suitcase and led her inside. The house was clean but sparse, the home of a man living alone. The kitchen was tidy, the living room simply furnished. Daniel set her suitcase down in the hallway and turned to face her. "I want to be clear about something," he said quietly. "What your brother did trying to give you away like that, it wasn't right. I only agreed because I could see he wasn't treating you well, and I thought maybe you deserved better than that." Elena stared at him, not understanding. Daniel continued, his voice steady but kind. "There's a bedroom upstairs, the one at the end of the hall. It's yours. I won't bother you. We're married on paper, yes, but I won't expect anything from you that you're not willing to give. You're free to leave whenever you want. I'll drive you to town, help you get settled somewhere if that's what you choose. But if you want to stay, you're welcome here. I could use help with the farm, that's true, but I'll pay you fair wages for any work you do. You're not a servant or a slave. You're a person, and you deserve to be treated like one." The words hung in the air between them. Elena felt tears threatening again, but for a different reason this time. She didn't know what to say, didn't know if she could trust this sudden kindness. "Why?" she finally whispered. "Why would you do this?" Daniel was quiet for a moment, then said, "I know what it's like to be seen as nothing more than what's useful about you. My own father used to treat me like a workhorse, never a son. When he died and left me this farm, I promised myself I'd never make another person feel that way." He paused, then added, "And your brother is a fool. Any man would be lucky to know you, regardless of what you look like." Elena couldn't hold back the tears then. They came in great, shuddering sobs, years of pain and loneliness and worthlessness pouring out of her. She expected Daniel to be uncomfortable, to leave, but instead he simply waited, patient and present, until the storm passed. "I'll show you to your room," he said gently when she'd quieted. "Take all the time you need to settle in. There's no rush for anything." The weeks that followed were strange and tentative. Elena remained guarded, waiting for the other shoe to drop, for Daniel to reveal his true intentions. But day after day, he remained consistent. He cooked meals and invited her to share them, but never demanded her presence. He showed her around the farm, explaining his work with genuine passion, but never forced her to help. He asked about her interests, her thoughts, her opinions, and actually listened to her answers. Slowly, carefully, Elena began to emerge from the shell she'd built around herself. She started helping with small tasks around the house, then gradually with the farm work. She discovered she enjoyed caring for the chickens, found peace in the routine of gathering eggs each morning. She began to cook, remembering recipes her mother had taught her years ago, and felt a small glow of pride when Daniel praised her meals. One evening, several months after their wedding, they sat on the porch together watching the sunset paint the sky in shades of gold and pink. Elena had been thinking about something for days, working up the courage to speak. "Daniel," she said finally, "why haven't you asked me about my weight, about why I'm like this?" He looked at her thoughtfully. "Because it's none of my business unless you want to talk about it. And because it doesn't define who you are. It's all anyone ever sees when they look at me." "Then they are not really looking," Daniel said simply. "I see someone who's kind to the animals, who brings me coffee in the morning without being asked, who laughs at my terrible jokes, who has beautiful handwriting and a gift for growing things. I see someone who's been hurt but is still capable of hope. That's what I see, Elena." She felt her eyes well up again, but these were different tears than the ones she'd shed on her wedding day. "I used to be different," she said quietly. "Before my parents died, I was never thin, but I wasn't like this. After the accident, I couldn't stop eating. It was the only comfort I had, with Marcus being so cruel, and the more I ate, the more he despised me, and the more I ate. It was a circle I couldn't break. And now—" Elena considered the question. "Now, I don't know. I don't eat out of sadness anymore, but I don't know how to change what I've become." "You don't have to change anything," Daniel said. "But if you want to, not for me, not for anyone else, but for yourself, I'll help however I can." Over the following months, something remarkable happened. Working on the farm, eating regular, healthy meals, having purpose and feeling valued, Elena began to change. Not quickly, not dramatically, but steadily. She felt stronger, more energetic. Her clothes began to fit differently. But more importantly, she began to see herself differently. She wasn't just Marcus's burden anymore. She wasn't just the fat girl no one wanted. She was Elena, a woman with talents and thoughts and value. She was someone who could nurture seedlings into strong plants, who could calm a nervous horse, who could make Daniel laugh with her dry observations about the neighbors they occasionally encountered in town, and somewhere along the way, she began to see Daniel differently too. The kindness that had once seemed almost suspicious became simply part of who he was. She noticed the way he moved through the world with quiet confidence, the way he treated everyone with respect, regardless of who they were. She noticed his smile, rare but warm when it appeared. She noticed how safe she felt in his presence, how home had become not just a place but a person. It was a spring morning, nearly a year after their wedding, when everything shifted. Elena was in the garden, planting tomato seedlings, when she heard Daniel approach. She looked up, shading her eyes against the sun, and found him watching her with an expression she couldn't quite read. "What?" she asked, self-conscious suddenly. "I was just thinking," he said, kneeling down beside her in the dirt, "that I'm the luckiest man alive." Elena laughed uncertainly. "Lucky, Daniel, No, listen." He interrupted gently. "A year ago your brother tried to throw you away. He thought no one would want you. But Elena, he was so wrong. You're everything I never knew I needed. You've made this house a home. You've made me happier than I've been in years. And He paused, choosing his words carefully. "I know our marriage didn't start in a conventional way. I know I said I wouldn't expect anything from you. But somewhere along the way, I fell in love with you. Completely, truly in love with you. And I wanted you to know that." Elena's heart hammered in her chest. She searched his face for any sign of deception, of pity, of anything other than the sincere emotion she saw there. "You love me," she whispered. "I love you," he confirmed. "I love your kindness, your strength, your humor, your heart. I love the way you sing to yourself when you think no one's listening. I love how you care for every living thing on this farm. I love you, Elena, not despite who you are, but because of it. The tears came again. They seemed to come so easily now, but they were good tears, healing tears. "I love you too," she said, the words feeling both terrifying and liberating. "I think I have for months, but I was too afraid to admit it, even to myself." Daniel reached out and gently wiped the tears from her cheeks, his touch tender. "You never have to be afraid here. Not of me, not of what you feel, not of anything." He leaned in slowly, giving her every chance to pull away, but she didn't. Their first kiss was gentle, tasting of sunshine and soil and promise. That evening, over dinner, they talked about everything. Their childhoods, their dreams, their fears. Elena told Daniel about her parents, about the girl she'd been before grief had buried her. Daniel shared his own stories of loneliness and finding purpose in the land. They talked late into the night, and when Elena finally climbed the stairs to her room, Daniel caught her hand. "You know you don't have to sleep up there anymore," he said softly, "unless you want to. No pressure, just. The offer stands." Elena squeezed his hand. "Maybe not tonight," she said, "but soon, I think. I think I just need a little more time." "Take all the time you need," Daniel said, as he always did. But it wasn't much longer. A week later, Elena moved her things into Daniel's room, and for the first time since her parents' death, she felt truly at peace. She had found something she'd thought was lost forever. A home, a purpose, and a love that saw her for who she truly was. Years would pass, and Elena's body would continue to change, though she never became the thin woman society said she should be. But it didn't matter anymore. She had learned that her worth wasn't measured in pounds or inches, but in the love she gave and received, in the life she built, in the person she chose to be each day. Sometimes, late at night, she would remember that rainy autumn day when Marcus had laughed at her, had declared that no man would want her. She would remember the shame and hopelessness she'd felt. And then she would look at Daniel sleeping beside her, would think of the farm they ran together, the community they'd become part of, the life they'd created from the ashes of her lowest moment. Marcus had been wrong, not just wrong, but spectacularly, completely wrong. She had been wanted, had been treasured, had been loved, not despite who she was, but because of it. And in the end, his cruelty had inadvertently given her the greatest gift of all. It had led her to a man who saw her worth when she couldn't see it herself, who had helped her remember that she was more than what others saw when they looked at her. She was Elena, she was loved, she was home, and that, she thought as she drifted off to sleep in Daniel's arms, was more than enough.